to cost management course. Today we will learn about job costing, or in your book is chapter 4. The learning objectives of this chapter are explain the types of costing systems, explain the strategic role of product costing, explain the flow of costs in the job costing system, explain the application of factory overhead costs in a job costing system, and then calculate under-applied and over-applied overhead and show how to dispose of it at the end of the period. Apply job costing in the service industry and explain the essence of an operation costing system. All the materials are come from Lecture et al. Book, Cost Management. Okay, now we move to costing systems. Costing is the process of accumulating, classifying, and assigning direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead costs to products, services, or projects. So cost system accuracy is critical to a firm's success. Costing systems help management estimate costs and accurately charge customers. An accurate costing system also provides a competitive advantage for the company. Okay. Developing a costing system. Product costing is a general term that refers to the process of assigning both direct and indirect costs to products or services. For direct costs are traced to a cost object in example job. Indirect costs are allocated to a cost object using one or more cost allocation basis or cost driver. Last week we learned about cost driver. Maybe you can check your notes. A firm's choice of costing system depends on the firm's industry and product or service. And then the firm's strategy and management information needs, and the cost and benefit of acquiring, designing, modifying, and operating a particular system. Now, for the company, when developing a product costing system, there are three choices that must be made. First of all, cost accumulation method. An example, job or process costing. And then cost measurement method, in example, actual, normal, or standard costing. And then overhead assignment method, in example, volume based or activity based. This all we will learn together for the next slide. Okay, each product costing system will reflect these three choices. For example, an organization's cost system may be characterized by job costing with normalized costs and activity-based costing used to allocate indirect costs. Okay, we'll continue this one. Cost accumulation. Yeah. Job or process costing. Okay. Now, in a job costing system, all manufacturing costs incurred are assigned to job. So this type of system is appropriate when costs can be readily identified with specific customers, job, or project. Here, yeah, specific customer, job, or project is for job costing. Okay, for job costing system, often found in small or medium firms that produce customized products. Yeah, this one important. Job costing is for customized products. Now for how about process costing? Process costing is often found in large firms that produce one or few homogeneous products. This one is important. Through continuous mass production. This use process costing. Now the examples below show how certain industries tend to favor a particular cost accumulation method. For job costing, usually for construction, printing, special equipment manufacturing. Yeah. Just remember that for job costing is customized product. Furniture as well. For the process costing, for example, chemical industry, usually for process costing is mass production and etc. Now, how about cost measurement? Actual, normal, or standard costing? Okay, an actual costing system uses actual costs incurred as the measure of product cost. Okay, this type of cost measurement is rarely used. Yeah. Actual costing is rarely used because unit costs fluctuate significantly, thereby increasing the possibility of error in pricing, adding or dropping product lines, and executing performance evaluations. Factory overhead costs are only known at or after the end of the period. So, thus managerial information is not available on a timely basis because known after the end of the period. Actual. Okay, how about normal costing? A normal costing system uses actual costs for direct materials and direct labor. Actual costs for like materials and direct labor, but normal or normalized costs for factory overhead. Okay, normal costing involves estimating a proportion of overhead to be assigned to each product as it is produced, providing a timely estimate of cost. Choice of an appropriate denominator activity level for allocating fixed overhead costs is a key consideration. And for standard costing, a standard costing system uses standard or normative cost for all cost elements, direct and indirect. Standard costs are costs a firm should attain under relatively efficient operating conditions. Standard costing system provide a basis for cost control, performance evaluation, and process improvement. Okay, this is the resume of a costing system. Actual, normal, and standard. For actual costing, all direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead, so all components using actual cost. That really happen. For normal costing, for direct and indirect use actual cost, but for factory overhead using applied overhead cost. And for standard costing, all components which is direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead using standard cost. Standard is normative cost. So for standard is under relatively efficient operating condition. And for job costing, actually use this one, normal costing. Okay, next. Still related to developing a costing system. Overhead assignment under normal costing. Volume-based or activity-based. Okay, for volume-based costing system, allocate overhead using a volume-based cost driver such as direct labor hours, direct labor costs, or machine hours. This approach relies heavily on the assumption that overhead cost incurrence is related to output volume. In an activity-based costing or ABC system, allocate factory overhead to products using a cause and effect criterion with multiple cost drivers, both volume-based and non-volume-based. ABC allocates factory overhead more accurately based on resource consumption. Okay, what is the strategic role of product costing? A firm's competitive strategy affects cost system design's consideration. A commodity or cost leadership type of firm is likely to combine process costing, standard costing, and activity-based costing. Products are largely homogeneous and produced in large production runs or process costing. It is important for a cost leader to have accurate cost, and activity-based costing is generally more accurate than volume-based costing. Standard costing will be important to a cost leader because it provides cost target and the ability to generate regular reports on financial cost performance. Next, a firm pursuing a differentiation strategy is likely to use job costing. Do you remember what is differentiation strategy? Yeah. And what is the leadership strategy? So 2 weeks ago we learned about cost leadership strategy and differentiation strategy. Okay, this type of firm produce a wide variety of distinct products in low volume. Monitoring cost is still important but not as critical. Okay, many firms will use a combination of job costing and process costing. For example, an automobile manufacturer, might use process costing for common features and job costing for unique features. Okay, job costing. Now will focus on job costing. Job costing is a product costing system that accumulates costs and assigns them to specific jobs, customers, project, client, or contract. specific jobs: customer, project, clients, or contract. Okay, the basic supporting document in a job costing system is the job cost sheets, which for the manufacturer records and summarizes the cost of direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead for a particular job. The job cost sheet is started when the production or processing of job begins. As a job goes through the production process, all costs for the job are accumulated on the job cost sheet. Upon its completion, overhead is allocated to the job. All the costs that appear on the job cost sheet are recorded in the WIP or work in process inventory account. The total of all the active job cost sheets should equal the debit side of the WIP inventory account. In example, the job cost sheet serves as the subsidiary ledger for the WIP inventory account. Okay, this one is cost flow of direct materials. Okay, this one for direct material. And this one is materials requisition form. This just example. Okay, this one is cost flows of direct labor. Direct labor costs are recorded to the job cost sheet from time tickets, which show the amount of time an employee worked on each job, the pay rate, and the total labor cost chargeable to each job. Time cards are also used for these purposes. Indirect labor such as supervisors and warehouse clerks' salaries is recorded as factory overhead, while direct labor is debited to the WIP inventory. This example of time ticket. Okay, this one is cost flows of factory overhead. Overhead application is the process of allocating overhead costs to individual jobs. There are three approaches to allocating overhead: actual, normal, and standard costing. Okay, remember in slide 13 and 14, yeah. Under the actual application method, overhead costs are tracked for each job and are transferred to work in process and finished good inventory in the exact amount incurred. Under the normal application method, overhead costs are applied to various jobs using single predetermined factory overhead rate. So what is the predetermined factory overhead rate? It is an estimated factory overhead rate used to apply factory overhead costs to a job. The dollar amount of overhead assigned to a job using this rate is called factory overhead applied. Factory overhead applied. So the predetermined factory overhead rate is obtained using a four-step process. First of all, estimate total factory overhead cost for the operating period, usually a year. Select the appropriate cost driver that will be used to apply factory overhead cost, and then estimate the total amount or activity level of the chosen cost drivers for the operating period. This is also referred to as the denominator activity level. For each overhead cost pool, compute the predetermined overhead rate by dividing budgeted overhead by the denominator activity level for the cost driver in question. So this one the formula. The predetermined factory overhead rate, or POHR, used to apply overhead to jobs is determined before the period begins. Predetermined factory overhead rate is equal estimated factory overhead amount for the year divided estimated level of cost driver for the year. Okay, related to cost driver, these are some possible cost driver. For example, direct labor. Yeah, it's hours machine using hours, number of set, yeah, number of setups, number of order, manufacturing cycle time. The predetermined factory overhead rate can be calculated on a firm-wide or a departmental basis. So you need to remember this formula. Predetermined overhead rate is equal estimated factory overhead amount for the year divided estimated level of cost driver for the year. And then overhead applied is equal to predetermined overhead rate multiple actual activity. For predetermined overhead rate is based on estimates and determined before the period begins. And for actual activity, its actual amount of the allocation base, such as a direct labor hours incurred during the period. Now, the factory overhead applied to jobs during a period is almost never equal to actual factory overhead costs incurred during that period. So if factory overhead applied is higher than actual factory overhead, this excess is referred to as over-applied overhead. And if factory overhead applied lower than actual factory overhead, this shortage is referred to as under-applied overhead. If the predetermined factory overhead rate is reasonable, in example, both the numerator and denominator in the predetermined overhead rate also are estimated with precision. Yeah, this difference should be small. Okay, disposition of under-applied and over-applied factory overhead. The factory overhead account is a temporary and sample nominal account, and As must be closed out to zero at the end of the year. Two treatments are possible. First of all, adjust the cost of goods sold. Yeah, adjust the cost of goods sold account. In example, the difference is simply added or subtracted from the cost of goods sold account. And then the second one, adjust the production cost of the period. In example, provide the discrepancy to the ending balance of work in process inventory, finished good inventory, and the cost of goods sold account based on the amount of applied overhead in each account or simply the total ending balance in each account. Okay. Okay, this is related to the disposition of underapplied and overapplied factory overhead. If the discrepancy is significant, the second method is generally preferred. If left unadjusted, inventory and cost of goods sold account would be substantially distorted. Okay. The first method is generally applicable when the discrepancy is insignificant or all units placed in production are completed and sold during the period. The overhead application rate is normally adjusted at the end of each year. Throughout the year, seasonal fluctuations are expected. Okay, job costing in service industry. Job costing is used extensively in service industries such as advertising agencies, construction companies, hospital, and etc. Okay, the cost object is often a client, contract, or project rather than a job, but the premise is the same. The major difference between manufacturing and service industry is the use of direct materials. Yeah. Service industries may not use little to no direct materials. The main focus of a service industry costing system is direct labor. The predetermined overhead rate is usually based on direct labor costs. Okay, now we move to operation costing. Operation costing is a hybrid costing system that uses job costing to assign direct material costs to jobs and to a departmental approach to assign conversion costs to products or services. Common in manufacturing companies whose conversion activities are similar across several product lines, but whose direct materials vary significantly. Direct material costs are traced directly to jobs, while conversion costs are traced to the department and then to jobs. This costing method is common in the following industries such as clothing, food processing, textile, shoes, furniture, metalworking, jewelry, and electronic equipment. Okay, now we move to next slide. Spoilage, rework, and scrap in job costing. Spoilage refers to the unacceptable units that are discarded or sold for disposal value. Rework units are units produced that must be reworked into good units that can be sold in regular channels. Scrap is the material left over from the manufacture of the product. It has little or no value. Okay, that's all for this chapter. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, for the summary. Yeah, that's that's all that we have learned today. Thank you very much. See you.